Hello and welcome. Marhaba ya hala. My name is Mona Huneidi. With me today is Sarah Farahat. Sarah is a transdisciplinary Egyptian American cultural worker, abolitionist, and educator, dreaming of a more collective future amongst the rubble of capitalism. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, Ahlan. Thank you, Mona, for talking with me today. Um, my work is transdisciplinary. So for those of you who aren't familiar with that, it means that I work in all different mediums and try to kind of think of that holistically instead of sometimes I do sculpture, sometimes I do painting, sometimes I do printmaking. So for me, anything and everything is a part of my art making process, including living a creative life, which I try to do.
That is lovely. I would like to take us now to, what you are relating to as art becoming part of your life. Relational aesthetics is something that is becoming more and more prevalent in various art forms these days. So, relational aesthetics, or more commonly known as social practice, what is it for you and how do you approach it?
I studied psychology in my undergrad, and I think that that combination of psychology and art really, and my interest in people, I'm just really curious about people and their lives. It makes a lot of sense to sort of engage people in the work that I do. Since I also do a lot of work that has to do with different social justice movements, it's very natural to engage with the people that I'm attempting to make work with and for. So, a lot of my projects might involve storytelling, inviting people to share things like food, like you're talking about. I did a project in Beirut where we turned a restaurant into a space where migrant workers who were also excellent chefs could share, for example, Ethiopian cuisine. So there is always a thread of working with people.
To go back to your artist statement, you identify as Egyptian American. How does being a Middle Eastern North African woman influence your work? Does it inspire anything specific in your work? In addition, you just mentioned working in Beirut. Do you exhibit work in the Middle East often? And if so, does it demand a balancing act specifically for an artist who is interested in social justice and a collective future?
I think it's impossible to make work from anywhere but through my own body. And growing up with a father who immigrated to the US, all of my family is in Egypt still on that side of my family, and then my mother's family is from Illinois, and settled in the US quite a long time ago. So that experience of being, and my father's Muslim, my mother's Christian, so I'm kind of like this person that's operating within the in-between spaces, and make work from that positionality, and have been working more seriously in the last, I would say, 5 or 6 years to really reckon with and honor the fact that my people don't come from this land, and so working in solidarity with the indigenous people, not only of specifically Portland, but different areas like at Standing Rock, and folks that are fighting Line 3 in Minnesota right now. So kind of blending my love of the natural environments and the people that have tended them since time immemorial is important to me. So I don't know if that quite answered your question. I have exhibited a little bit in Swana regions, but of course I would love to more. Right now it's really hard to be so far away from family.
So you definitely have a political, socio-political approach to things. In regard specifically to the Middle East, when you exhibit there, is there a balancing act? Do you try to censor yourself, or just specifically in regards to your approach to social justice and a collective?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I have made work that I do have fear about specifically with how things are going in Egypt right now. I have a couple of portraits that I want to do this year. One of Sarah Hagazi, who was a queer activist that spent quite a bit of time in prison in Egypt and recently committed suicide. And then also Noel Sadawi, who is a feminist icon from Egypt who recently passed away. I think a lot of my work has been around Palestine and in solidarity with the Palestinian people. And for a while, that was something that I had to be really careful about as I was traveling. But I got a 10-year ban. And so instead of hiding under a rock, I decided, well, you banned me, so I might as well just make as much work as possible using, the privilege or pain of not being able to visit Palestine again. So
I want to just talk about words and artwork. Art is universal, which is what makes it boundless. Yet one cannot ignore the power of language and its use as an artistic tool. Personally, I think there's a kind of visual poetry that goes hand in hand with the statement made by the artist. So what are your words? What's your poem? What are in your posters? How do you work with that?
I think, I was a bookworm growing up. That was part of my world, was escaping into books and, anything from the little green stories coming about Alibaba to, like all sorts of different fantastical tales. That's really a part of my childhood, and I still am really interested in speculative fiction and poetry, and I write a little bit of poetry. So I think that the words and images, they just kind of come naturally. Sometimes I even start with a phrase and then build out the visual elements to accompany them. Something that popped into my head when you were talking about censorship was the fact that one of the prints that I made, or the stickers that I made right when the former president came into office, was about the Muslim registry. And it's a pretty, straightforward middle finger, and it says, register this. And I just was like really feeling that kind of righteous anger of like, why are you here? And I think having, known the legacy of the internment of the Japanese people and all of the hatred towards Asian Americans that's happening right now, our struggles are all linked. And I think that through my words, I try to kind of both honor the specificity of each movement that I'm working with, and also the parallels and the ways in which we connect.
When did you start? What's your approach? What's your technique? And what kind of research, if any, do you do?
Thank you for that question. I started doing murals in 2002 when I lived in Los Angeles. Of course, the Mexican muralist traditions are strong throughout that region. And so I really feel influenced by that cultural experience. And, Portland has an interesting history around murals and public art culture. And I feel lucky to have been here long enough to see this sort of resurgence that's happening now. And I think you're referring to the fact that I was chosen to do a mural for Trimet as a tribute to the people that were killed and traumatized by the attacks on May 27th of 2017. But yeah, I think that it's so beautiful to make work in public that doesn't have that barrier of the gallery space. For me, even framing things to me is this barrier between ourselves and the artwork. And so I think, working with people or working with a wall that you can touch is just that barrier is broken down, and people can ask you questions as you're working. It was really an honor to work on that project and to think through how we could make a mural, how we could activate public space, create a space for people to mourn, to speak with young people about how they wanted to feel safe in the city, and to celebrate my culture and uplift the beauty of Arabic calligraphy, as well as all the other languages that are spoken here that aren't, and the people that aren't as seen and unseen, let's put it that way.
Do you see me now?
Exactly.
That's yeah. Thank you so much for that, Sarah. I really appreciate you coming on to talk to us. This is very, very great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mona, for the opportunity, and for Akko for inviting me to do this.